I was seeing these silly injuries over and over again that I think could be prevented. What I call self-inflicted injuries, right? It wasn't like someone plowed into you or you hit a wall. You took off or stopped or turned direction, changed direction, and your body wasn't able to tolerate that force. Something gave. And these things should really never happen if the body's prepared appropriately. You have a highly functioning neuromuscular system, and you have a body that's calloused, right? We call this place really a callusing facility to get bodies to tolerate these crazy stresses that people are dealing with. Whether it is, again, we always, in MAT, we always talk about the three big stressors out there: mental, emotional stress, chemical stress, and physical stress or mechanical stress. So we want to get them prepared for all of this.
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And today we have a phenomenal guest for you, none other than our friend and colleague, Kirk Bradshaw. Kirk is the founder of the Athletic Training Institute in Bellevue, Washington, right outside of Seattle, where he and his team of coaches help their clients, both office professionals and professional athletes and athletes of varying levels, increase their tolerance to stress, increase their muscular system's ability to perform in life and perform in sport. So Kirk, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us more about how you got into your line of work with not only, MAT, but, how your education journey started off and then how your interest in sports grew and how you developed it into what you now have as the Athletic Training Institute.
Yeah. So I was athletic trainer at Washington State University way back when. I'm nearing 50 years old. So this is a couple years ago. But my bias has always been trying to keep people healthy. Right. So when I was in athletic medicine, I worked with various programs, basketball, girls basketball, and then ended up traveling with the football team all over the country, which is quite an adventure. But my hunger and thirst for information to actually keep people healthy has never stopped. And I don't know if it ever will. Always looking for ways to maximize my skill set to assist clients with staying healthy. So post school, took CSCS exam because I've always been very into the training side as well. Took my ATC, took a PES, which Performance Enhancement Specialist, was an NASM certification. Just trying to, gather as much info as possible. And then we opened this place 16 years ago. So I'm kind of jumping there quite a bit, but I went from being a head athletic trainer at a high school to working. We had our first company, which was called Advanced Fitness, and we had various contracts all over the city. Seattle Tennis Club, Mercer Island Country Club. These are kind of high-end places where we would run all their athletic development programs. Doing speed agility camps, we were actually the first people to do speed and agility camps, and this was back in 1990. Right when we got married, 1994. So, and it came from the idea of preventing injury because I was, sitting in the training room. Every start of every season, you see the same injuries. So whether it's tennis, you get a bunch of tennis elbow. You get baseball, you get a bunch of shoulder issues, and then football, you have a ton of hamstring and groin issues, and calves, strains, and wrestling comes. So it was in my head. I'm like, there has to be a way to prevent this from happening, or at least minimizing these opportunities. So I started training athletes right from where I was at the high school. I started the speed agility camps. We call it speed agility camp because if I said it was an injury prevention camp, no one would show up, right? Mm-hmm. You had to figure out a way to spin that, so it was exciting. And, they did get big time increases in performance variables as well because their body was actually functioning better. This is all pre-MAT. So my hunger kept, I was so hungry for information. It didn't make sense to me, the things that I was seeing with some of the techniques we were using back then. And unfortunately, some people are still using today. It's like boggles my mind. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to crap on anybody, but there's just some things that didn't make sense. Like, why was this person getting better, but this person gets worse with these same set of exercises that are based off of this being weak and this being tight? It didn't make sense to me. So we actually ran, myself and one of my coworkers, Ricky, who you know very well, got into a car because I'd spoken with somebody about this guy named Greg Roscoff who was teaching these classes. We got into a car and drove to Bend, Oregon, which is a pretty good distance from here, about 8-hour drive, and went to our first class. And that completely turned everything that I thought I knew upside down. We drove home 8 hours with the radio off.
Wow.
Yeah, like what in the hell are we going to do? What are we going to do with our clients on Monday? We were like, oh my God. So from that point, we actually brought the class here. We started over again. We wanted it to be in Seattle. So we talked with Greg and brought the class here. And that's where this place became sort of a hub in the Northwest for MAT. But yeah, I'm kind of jumping all over the place with my timeline. Sorry about that. That's my brain. But yeah, we started this place 16 years ago with the idea of actually, rather than me traveling all over the place working with athletes, I wanted them to come to me and have a facility in the Northwest where you could train athletes. Winters here aren't ideal for outdoor training. It's dark at 4 o'clock and gross and rainy and wet. Yeah. So we myself and another guy named Tim Manson put this place together 16 years ago. And yeah, it's really morphed more into an MAT-centric facility now. Everything we do is based on the status of the nervous system. Because as you guys know, if you put stress on a body that's full of compensations, you just get better at compensating. Right. Human body is designed to survive. We just want to make sure athletes are actually set up, their body's actually set up to tolerate the stresses that we're putting on them. And that we're actually getting the adaptations that we're looking for, because that's really what you're doing when you're training, right? You're looking for some sort of adaptation. So, but if you don't know the status of a nervous system, how do you know what sort of adaptations you're obtaining? You don't. You're crossing your fingers, and we used to call it the spaghetti approach, when you grab a handful of noodles and throw it against the wall and hopefully something sticks. So I didn't want to do that anymore, and that's why this place really became what it is now, which is, I mean, there's 14 of us here that practice MAT, and we have one of our young men, Devin McKee, I'm sure you've met Devin before, is actually going to school at Bastyr University right now to become a ND, which is naturopathic physician.
Wow.
So he's got another 5.5 years of education ahead of him. But he's such a grinder. He's so hungry for information to try and help people. And it just fits into our model of trying to address cause rather than treat symptom.
Sure.
Naturopathic medicine is all about causation. It's about, why would your body do this to you? Why would your body react this way? What is not functioning appropriately that's causing you to have these quote unquote symptoms? Sure. Rather than just giving it a name and handing you a bunch of pills. Mm-hmm. So, and then we have a handful of RTS guys here. They're also MAT people. And so we kind of have those three big arms here. One thing we don't have, which I would love to encompass into our training methods, is more the mental aspect. Finding a person that fits with our group would be ideal. So we'll find it at some point. I'm just not in a rush to bring someone in who I don't think would be good in our team.
I would love to go back, just for our listeners' sake, because it seems like you were very aggressively looking for knowledge and information when you were, in still. And then eventually you stumbled upon MAT. What were the concepts that you learned in your first weekend? I mean, one weekend of exposure to MAT that completely changed your mindset to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, we have to completely restructure. What the heck are we going to do on Monday? What were some of those concepts that were so different from the MAT class that you learned that first weekend?
Yeah, I mean, if you understand athletic medicine, that'll probably help a little bit as well. I mean, athletic training is all about getting people back on the field. Mm-hmm. So you're taping, bracing, stretching, using modalities, anything you can to get them back on the field. That's not necessarily what's always best for the athlete. A lot of times it's not, right? Long-term in particular, these guys and girls are a mess. And we get to see them now, right? Because I'm sure you have a fairly extensive client base that was ex-athletes, right? They're people that have been active their whole life or competing competitively at very high levels, and they're a train wreck, right? Their joints are all beat up, and they have brain issues because they played football or hockey and they got smashed. So, yeah, understanding that is very helpful because my mindset was of that nature. It was like, okay, I just got to get guys back out there. What can I do to get them back out there? So I was doing a ton of foam rolling, deep tissue work, stretching, everything that I learned in school that I thought was appropriate for dealing with tightness, right? So that first weekend, as you well know, Charlie, because you're an instructor with this, is such a huge kick in the groin in regards to your paradigm of thinking, because all of a sudden someone tells you that, and I don't know why it doesn't dawn on you earlier, that maybe tightness is there on purpose. Your body's putting that there as a means of protecting you. Well, what's it protecting you from? You better figure out what that is before you throw somebody back out into a high force activity. So yeah, that was probably the biggest one. Like, oh my God, what have you been doing to people? I'm so sorry. I mean, it was a lot of apologies.
Sure.
Clients when we came back, just like, we're not going to do that anymore. Whereas all we're doing is opening you up for more injuries, right? We're creating more instabilities if we're just getting rid of these symptoms that your body's put there as a means of protecting you. You better account for why it was there in the first place. Because if it's like an actual injury, they need to see a doctor. But if they've got a massive overabundance of compensations, which most athletes do because they put crazy stress on their bodies and their body's just doing what it's designed to do, then you better account for that. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with serious injuries, ACLs, Achilles ruptures, big giant tears in muscles. I mean, you guys have heard a million stories, I'm sure. Right? That's where my mindset came from, and that was like the biggest, like, eye-opening piece of information was that opening weekend. Like, tightness is secondary to weakness. There's a reason for this symptom that we call tightness.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and it's like you're saying. It is so mind blowing when you see it in practice, and when you see it, okay, it's one thing to talk about it, but then when you actually see it happen in front of you, how you don't necessarily address the tightness, you address, like you're saying, the weaknesses, and all of a sudden the motion opens up, people's stability improves, or force output improves. It's incredible. One thing you brought up when you were kind of giving your backstory was this idea of, hey, you had to disguise your injury prevention clinics as like speed, agility, quickness clinics. You had to use that terminology because even though the thing that you valued was injury prevention, you had to hide it as these other things. So I'm curious, okay, obviously like not getting injured is a good thing, but why to you was that such a big thing that you're like, I need to run clinics around this, but it's probably not going to be that other people are as into it as I am, so I need to disguise it as speed, agility, quickness. Why was injury prevention for you in particular such a big thing to pursue?
Oh, my background in athletic medicine. And like I was saying before, spending so much time in a training room, and I was, a huge high school. There's 2,000 kids, and I'm one athletic trainer trying to deal with, half the football team's got hamstring strains and groin tears and back problems, and like, man, I don't have the manpower to do this. And I didn't have a bunch of student trainers, and I don't know if I want to stick them with student trainers anyway. So the motivation was because I was seeing these silly injuries over and over again that I think could be prevented. What I call self-inflicted injuries, right? It wasn't like someone plowed into you or you had a wall. You took off or stopped or turned direction, changed direction, and your body wasn't able to tolerate that force. Something gave, right? Either a soft tissue give or ligament tissue or in worst cases, things like Lisfranc fractures where you actually have a fractured bone. And these things should really never happen if the body's prepared appropriately. You have a highly functioning neuromuscular system, and you have a body that's calloused, right? We call this place really a callusing facility to get bodies to tolerate these crazy stresses that people are dealing with. Whether it is, again, we always, in MAT, we always talk about the three big stressors out there: mental, emotional stress, chemical stress, and physical stress or mechanical stress. So we want to get them prepared for all of this, right? So I don't know if I answered your question there, but that was my primary motivation, was just seeing these injuries over and over again, and knowing that, number one, people just aren't into showing up to work out just to prevent injuries, particularly high school kids. And be like, man, high school kids, the reason they recruit 18-year-olds for the military, they all think they're invincible. I'm not going to get hurt. I'll be fine. So you can't go around promoting something, and then you can never really prove that you prevented injuries. It's kind of one of those weird, I don't know what to call it, but it's you can't prove that you prevented it because it didn't happen, right? So so we wanted to throw the speed, agility, quickness out there, and it became, for me, it became a really good way to market it and keep kids from getting hurt.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes perfect sense, because to your point, it's like, hey, one of the fastest ways to decrease your performance is to get injured. So if you can make sure that you're not getting injured, well, then if nothing else, you're at least not decreasing your performance, which if everybody else is getting injured, guess what? Now you're increasing your performance relative to everybody else. So, I mean, in a roundabout way, you can make that connection, but without question, I mean, we see it. Look, if you are exercising in an appropriate manner, you're going to decrease your risk for injury. And when you do get banged up, you recover a lot faster, because your body is, it is functioning at a higher level, and it can, like you're saying, just tolerate those stresses much better.
Okay, so we've talked about your past. Charlie and I have gotten to pick apart a few things, and now I'd like to talk a bit more about what you're doing today, what you personally and professionally are doing today, and what you also are kind of ATI as a whole is doing with clients. Who do you see? What kind of things are you helping people with? Are you working with professional athletes? I know Charlie said in your bio, professional athletes, and also kind of, people just wanting to be healthy. Tell us a little bit more about today.
Well, today's actually, we're doing nothing because of
non-coronavirus.
Learned a lot. I'm spending time talking to awesome people like you and doing a lot of reading and studying with my partners here at my facility. But gosh, I mean, if this wasn't here, it would be a lot of MAT. I'm doing between 8 and 12 hours a day of RX, which for your listeners, if they don't know what RX is, the highest level of MAT. And we were hand selected, as was Charlie, to be part of this kind of beta test group for this new methodology using this stim unit. It's been phenomenal. I'm having so much fun with it. Yeah. I really am. I've never been this excited about MAT, mostly because of the opportunities it's going to provide down the road with, challenging these patterns with exercise and really driving thresholds in the human body and taking that callusing idea and taking it a step further, where they're not just not getting hurt, they're performing at levels that people are like, what? How did you get your body to do that? Repeatedly. Yeah. That's amazing. So I spend most of my day doing RX, as do a handful of guys in here. And then, like I said, we have the guy who does all the, what I call redefined nutrition work with people. I'll give you a little bit back history on that. Nutrition as a whole is kind of a catchphrase for people, kind of like what I was talking about earlier. You have to kind of spin things for people so they will want to actually partake. Devin had this whole program laid out with this kind of funky name that people would just get confused on. So I'm like, bro, people understand what nutrition means. They think it's, it's food. So we need to call it redefined nutrition, because it's not just about food, right? It's about appropriate light. It's about appropriate water, non-native EMF slamming your body all the time. Everything in our environment we need to account for. Because if your body's in a bad place, even from down to the cellular level, if your mitochondria are all messed up, they're not functioning appropriately, not only are you at risk for injuries, but you're at risk for disease. So we're just trying to account for everything, right? So we have him, and then we have, like I said, we have our RTS guys who do a lot of the workouts and group training with our athletes. So yeah, it's pretty quiet right now, as you can see. There's not a lot happening. Sure. But on any given day, there's 15, 20, 30 people in here at a time going. I mean, it's a music playing and a lot of laughter, and it's a lot of fun. So I definitely miss that. I miss the camaraderie. I miss we have, as you know, being in classes, we have a lot of comedians in here. Sure, so yeah. We have a lot of fun.
I bet. Now, the clients that you see, is it strictly an athletic base, or are there office professionals as well, people that don't come necessarily from a competitive athlete standpoint?
That's kind of a complicated question, because most of the people, like I said, had been active in their lifetime. I still consider them athletes.
Okay, sure. All right, that's fair.
To me, again, athlete to me just means you're passionate about what you're doing in life. Jock is someone who just played sports, right? So a lot of the people we work with are very athletic in nature. They were super competitive when they were younger. They want to remain competitive, and they're playing tennis and golf, and even into their 60s, 70s. So I have a pretty large client base of people that are older, baby boomers, which is they're not even allowed anywhere near here right now because of what's going on with coronavirus and them being like the primary risk group, right? Anything above 60. So yeah, we do have a client base of, even people in their 80s and maybe early 90s who come in for MAT and some training sessions, and they just want to stay active.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's a pretty vast group of people we work with. It's fun because we have input from these people about how we're doing business, and we have input in regards to life, and you get really amazing, as you guys know, amazing friendships from some of your clients that you work with for an extended period of time.
No, definitely. Okay, so that makes sense. So you have people that are, like currently competitive athletes. You have people that are formerly competitive athletes, and then we'll just say you have people that are, competitive lifers. Like they just have something in life that they love to do, at a high level, like you're saying, whether it's, outdoor activities, golf, tennis, hiking, something of that nature. But they're not necessarily like getting paid to play on TV, but they are using their body for, a great amount of enjoyment in their life. And so they're coming to you to be able to perform well in life. So that definitely makes sense. So on that note, then, kind of what do you see the benefits of, not just MAT, but everything else that is being done at ATI for people that are not necessarily professional athletes, but, want to be able to ski, want to be able to hike, want to be able to golf, and want to be able to continue to use their body for the foreseeable future?
It's kind of, again, it's such a relative question, right? Because everyone comes in here with different issues and has different goals. And I think the bottom line, they want to be able to do things without being in pain all the time. And again, we're always taught not to treat symptoms, but it sure is nice to actually be able to do things without being in pain all the time. Sure. So, I'll give you an example. That client that I was referring to, who's a congressman, was a mess when he came in here. He was stretching 2 hours every day. Every day, just to be able to function. He couldn't walk without shoes on because his feet would cramp up so bad. He was an absolute mess on a bunch of different medications. I felt so bad for him. Like, okay, do you want 2 hours of your life back every day? Because I know you're a busy man. He's like, yes, I would love that, but what does that mean? And he was so addicted to stretching because it was the only time he ever felt good. It's like the exercise addicts, right? I'm sure you guys have some of those. Like, the only time they ever feel good is when they're beating the crap out of their body. Right. Which makes absolutely no sense, but unless you understand, endogenous morphines, endorphins, if you're constantly bombarding your body with that, and that's the only time you ever feel good, maybe you're in a bad spot, right? So he was a big mess. Well, that was about 2 years ago, and now he's completely off everything. He's outdoor walking. He walks around barefoot. He feels fantastic. He's just a happy guy now. And, his assistant called me the other day because she's actually doing some assistance for us with what we're going through with government right now. And she's like, I'm sure you guys have had these stories, and it's so heartwarming when someone thanks you like she did. She's like, you were my favorite person. Because he is a completely different man than he was 2 years ago.
That's so cool.
Yeah. That's an example of someone who's not really a competitive athlete, but he wants to be able to do things and live. He's got kids. He wants to be able to live without this massive amount of pain he was in. So that's definitely an MAT success story.
I love hearing those. I think all of us MAT specialists have, stories like that. But that's like a true example of what you had said, earlier in this interview about, there's not really like an injury where you need to go see a doctor, but it's like this accumulative thing that is just not been addressed, which we know as MAT specialists is like, hey, a big portion of that is your muscle system. Like, hey, let's get your muscles. I love the word you've been bringing up, callus. Like, let's get them tolerating some stuff. Like, let's get you tolerating walking to the mailbox and, being able to step out of your shoes without your body disliking it so much that you're cramping up. But that was a really good example of, hey, you didn't just go get injured one time and, you healed and then you took a break for 6 weeks and now you're back. But that's a good example of like this build up over time, and I think a lot of people experience something like this, like where it's these chronic things that are kind of like sitting there, you never get them addressed, and then we do go to the doctor for them, and the only thing that we learn is we might learn something that can help us through. Like this gentleman, stretched for 2 hours a day. I remember I had a client in his mid-30s that would have to do a 45-minute like stretching routine in the morning. I'm like, dude, you're in your mid-30s. There's no way that you should have to be doing this just to get out of bed. Like, that's nuts. So, great example.
Right. I mean, think about where their bodies are. And because we are in the know now, and it sounds super arrogant, but we just have this understanding, at least, a very brief understanding of maybe the body's creating these things because it wants you to stop, right? You're a mess. Your body's basically doing what it's designed to do, which is protect you first, right? Yeah. I mean, down to the very microscopic cellular level, our body's prime directive is survival, right? That's it. So, yeah, these people are just such, I feel badly for them, and it's so rewarding to be able to help people through those things. And we have, it's been great to see our referral rate really go up here, and we have a huge group of doctors now in Seattle that believe in what we're doing. It's come a long way. I'm sure you guys can attest. Sure. When we first started doing this, we thought we were like voodoo doctors, and they were in the back, like killing chickens, and
exactly.
How does this work? We've definitely gotten better at explaining how the process works. But I also think, even in the last 2 or 3 months, with the addition of the STEM unit, it's taken away a lot of the mysticism of MAT.
Yeah.
What are you doing with your fingers? I'm like, man, it's not my fingers. I'm just distorting tissue. And now we're replacing that with this gadget, and it's provided like a level of realism to people. I don't know if that's the appropriate word. They look at this device and they're like, man, that thing's awesome. Look what it did to me.
Isn't it funny how, and every MAT specialist goes through this, that it's like as soon as we have something that we can do with your muscles that actually makes you feel good, like it kind of can't be true, because up to this point, exercise has always been something that kind of beats you down, makes you not feel better, for sure. And if it does make you feel better, then we must be some crazy, weird voodoo doctor, like you said. It's like, no, there's actually, exercise is allowed to make you feel good, make you feel better, give you more motion. It's just the opposite side of the spectrum that we're ever presented with in, mainstream media or at the big gyms and stuff like that. So it is quite interesting that you went through that as well.
Even more difficult because of what we've done with LED lights, and we have this overabundance now of blue light toxicity because of the price of blue light, right? It's so cheap to run your devices, your computers, like I'm getting hammered right now from blue light, but your cell phones and this light we work under, right, these fluorescent bulbs, it's all blue light driven. So we're furthering the problem with dysfunctional bodies because of what we're doing with our environment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people are being told you can fix that with food and supplements, and you can eat perfect. But if you're hammering your body with blue light at 10 o'clock at night, which is what these, a lot of kids in particular are doing, they're basically telling their body that it's noon at 10 or 11 or midnight, and they're completely messing with their circadian clock. So I'm not sure if you've read Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep.
No, I haven't.
A phenomenal book. I mean, it was such a synopsis of like everything that I've ever learned in health and wellness. It helped me kind of reorganize my thoughts about what sleep is. Sleep is basically when we adapt. I mean, that's when all adaptation takes place. So if you're not sleeping, you're not adapting.
Sure.
No matter what you're doing during the day, you could be exercising perfect and eating perfect, but if your sleep is garbage, your outcomes are going to be garbage. So it's a really interesting book. I highly advise reading it.
And that's actually a perfect transition, because one thing that I definitely wanted to talk with you about today was the program that you have at your facility called ADAPT. So talk to us more about what the ADAPT program is. I know you've kind of alluded to it a couple times so far during this conversation, but kind of tell us more about like what it involves, who you've seen kind of partake in it, and what some of the results and benefits have been of doing this ADAPT program.
I'll go back to what I was talking about with mitochondrial function. All of our devices we have in our ADAPT center, we have 5 different devices. We have a PEMF device, which is a grounding device. And again, all of these you could probably get if your environment was perfect, particularly if you live like on a beach somewhere. And you can go out and get morning sunshine every morning and go stand and get grounded on the beach. It'd be perfect. We don't have that. In the world we live in, it's really difficult to make that happen for most people. So that's been a really cool device. We have a NanoV device, which is you're essentially inhaling structured water. There's a book called The Fourth Phase of Water by Gerald Pollack. He's actually a UW scientist. And if he doesn't win a Nobel Prize, I'll be surprised. And he's an absolutely brilliant guy that figured out that water organizes itself under appropriate light to allow your mitochondria to function better. So they actually funnel electrons at a faster rate.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Phenomenal book. The first couple chapters are kind of like, dude, I don't really care what pipettes you're using and what test tubes you're using for your. I just give me the meat and potatoes. I want to know what you did with this to discover this phase of water. So we have a hyperbaric chamber, which has been great for a ton of our people with concussions. We give TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. And it's also phenomenal for really any injury coming off surgeries, pre and post surgery. It's been phenomenal. People with lung disorders been really, really, really good. We have some patients that have come off of cancer surgeries. They've had breast augmentation because they've had breast cancer. So I mean, it's been a great tool. Then we have an infrared sauna, which is phenomenal because of what I was talking about earlier with the overabundance of blue light. Red light is basically the antidote to blue. So if you can get access to an infrared sauna, you want full spectrum. We have one called clear light sauna, which is it's Ben Greenfield's huge on it, and that's how we got turned on to it. Also, we have a Juve light, which is very similar but a little bit different frequency that helps your mitochondrial function as well. So those are our devices. And the Adapt Center was basically a way for our clients to get even higher efficiency out of what they're getting from workouts. So their body can actually adapt at a higher rate.
That's awesome.
And most people, like I said, are just dealing with the stresses of our environment. So if we can even play for a tie with that, because they're getting smashed by 5G now, and they're on cell phones, computers all day long, and if we can get their body to the point where it's even close to, I don't want to call it zero, but to the point where the cells are functioning normally, they're going to feel a lot better. They're going to sleep a lot better. They're going to digest food better. Their hormones are going to work better. I mean, everything is going to work at a better level. They're going to be less likely to get sick. We've had a pretty good response from it. Our athletes love it. So much so that a lot of them bought their own.
Wow.
They're buying their own hyperbaric chambers because like, man, we work with a handful of Seahawk guys, and they were healing faster than their teammates in between games. So it's like I felt way better after being in there. How much of that is placebo? I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could somehow objectify that, but we don't. We just shove them in there and like, how do you feel? They're like, man, I feel a lot better. So, yeah. And then a handful of our guys also purchased the Nano V devices, and they take them with them wherever they go.
Yeah.
They're small enough where they can put them in a little case, and they travel with them because of the healing properties of, again, mitochondrial function. If your mitochondria are actually functioning better, you're going to heal faster. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good learning experience. We're still trying to get one more piece of equipment in here. There's actually a group of people on Vashon Island that created this product called Soleus, which is kind of a fun play on word. But it's a device that is a very specific frequency of UVB. So you go in there, you could look it up. I think it's spelled Solius. Yeah, Soleus. Yep. And you can go to their website and see what it is they do. It's really, really cool. But they haven't gotten FDA approval yet in the States. They're in Canada, but not here. But it looks like a photo booth. You go in there, and it goes on I think it's called the Fitzpatrick skin scale, and it tells you what kind of skin you have. And then you're in there for 2 or 3 minutes, and you get the appropriate dosage of UVB, which starts this huge friggin' tidal wave of, including vitamin D, of course. Vitamin D is the one we always hear about. But when you understand how important UV light is for your hormones and your endocrine system, and same thing, but your neurotransmitters and everything else, and how much we don't get it right now. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're smashing our bodies with blue light, and our circadian clocks are all screwed up. Sure. So, yeah, we're trying to get that in here, but as soon as they get FDA approval, they've told us they want to partner with us. So
that's awesome. That's really cool. So it sounds to me like there are kind of different, like you were saying before, kind of arms or branches of ATI. And on the one hand, you have the training aspect side of things, whether it's group training or more one-on-one. Then you have the MAT side of things, where you're trying to improve people's tolerances to stress from a neuromuscular perspective.
Really, everything we are doing is an attempt to callus the body, whether it's the adapt center, whether it's what we're doing with exercise, because really exercise, you're just trying to callus the body so it can tolerate higher levels of stress, right? So everything is under that umbrella. Yeah, I mean, the MAT, the RTS, what we're doing with Devin and getting redefined nutrition, everything is an attempt to get a body more tolerant to stress.
Okay, that makes sense. Would you say that the adapt, because as you were describing it, it sounded to me like, yes, the adapt, it fits under the callus mode. Do you find it to be part of the recovery aspect of like, hey, if you know, I'm not saying the other sides are like beating you up, but there's the train side thing. Hey, if we can get you to recover faster, whether it's from your games or from your injuries, from your surgery, something like that, then you can get back to exposing your body to this greater callusing process overall.
And really, I mean, if you take a big step back and you look like the 30 million mile perspective of what these devices do, we're not really adding anything to the body that's not supposed to be there. We're just trying to normalize it, right? Because we live in this crazy world with all these weird stresses. And we're just trying to normalize it so your body can actually do what it's designed to do. It's the same thing with MAT. We're not adding anything to the body that's not supposed to be there. We're just trying to reset, right? So your body has this communication that's supposed to be there in the first place.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, the adapt center is not. People would look at these devices and go, "Wow, that's really cool." I'm like, man, it's all we're doing is just putting what's supposed to be really cool in your body back into play again.
So you've brought up a couple different things that you guys do at ATI, all with, you know, the same mission. Let's callus the body. Let's get the body tolerating life better, whether life means sports, whether it means recreation, whatever. Does everyone that comes through your doors do all of those things? Like, do they all do MAT and training and the redefined nutrition and the adapt center? Or do you pick and choose, or do they pick and choose? How does that work?
There is probably I don't call percentages, but I mean, everyone does MAT. Because it's just a requirement, right? I don't let my athletes touch a weight until they've gone through a number of sessions. Any of my clients, for that matter, you know, they come in here and they're like, I want to get back to exercise. And I'm like, time out. We have to get you back to ground zero before you go back and put stress on your body. Because if you go do that, and you guys know this as well as anybody, we're going to be wiping your butt with a wagon wheel. You're going to be super frustrated, right? Because the minute you go out and put stress in your body, you're going to shut it back down again because it's already inflamed. So everyone is required to do MAT in here because we want to know the status of the nervous system prior to them doing the other activities, right? We do have some people that come in just because they had a traumatic brain injury and they heard that we have a hyperbaric chamber. But a lot of times they'll look across the room and see someone doing MAT and go, well, what's that? You know, what is he doing? Or what is she doing? And then they'll be interested in getting their body right other than just their noggin. You know, they're like, gosh, I've had an ankle injury and I have a foot problem, and can you help me with that? So yes, all of our training athletes are required to do MAT. Not everybody does the adapt center. That's some people are just not into it, right? They don't want to spend the money. They're like, you know, I'm fine. A lot of it's they don't understand, right? And I don't want to be the salesman that's constantly up the rear end about, now you got to do this. So, but we're trying to package things differently this next off season to entice people to do it, because if they get better results, they're going to perform better and be less likely to get hurt. And it's kind of built-in marketing for us as well, because they're going to perform better.
Kirk, is there anything that we haven't asked you that we should have asked you about your area of expertise, about the inner workings of ATI, and about the whole process of getting people's bodies and neuromuscular system calloused for sport and for life?
I'll probably think about it tonight, like at 3 a.m. and like wake up screaming. Yeah, no, I don't. You guys have done a pretty good job asking the questions. There's so much to talk about, right? I mean,
sure.
In this world that we live in, and to really be an expert in everything is impossible. Well, I do my best of trying to stay in my own lane with the MAT side. For too long, I was trying to do everything, and that's when I started to shove people away. I was like, look, you have to go see this guy, because one of our guys just tested out for RTS Mastery and passed, and which puts the tops in the country for understanding resistance training. So I constantly send him people, and then we have people like Devin who I send people because they come in here, after piping down a bunch of Twinkies and pizza before a workout. I'm like, man, you're gonna paint our ivy in front in about 30 minutes. Yep. You're going to be sick.
Exactly.
And you have acne and you can't sleep. And so, I mean, there is some benefit to eating correctly. We know that. But Yeah. Gosh, I would say maybe the thing you didn't ask me about was, how do you compartmentalize running the business as well as working with all your clients?
Sure.
Which is, I'm sure you guys know this is tough. It's very tough because you're trying to please everybody, and this facility is pretty big. There's 14 of us in here. I'm trying to make everyone happy, and then I'm trying to make all my clients happy. I'm trying to make my family happy, and it's tough. So you really have to stay as organized as possible and try and stay in front of things rather than constantly being reactive. So I'm always trying to learn. So trying to read books and learn from people like Charlie, who is very intelligent and works very hard. I'm always trying to learn how they do things, who they talk to, and just couple up with the right people. And I'm very blessed because we have some awesome, amazing business people in the Seattle area who we work with, who have helped me out along the way. They've been fantastic mentors.
That's really cool.
One of the original 20 at Microsoft, the guy who started T-Mobile.
Wow.
He's one of my clients. And they're just awesome people, and they just want to help.
Yeah.
They do. And these are the people that are now contacting me all the time, like, how you doing? How's your business? Bro, you started T-Mobile, and you're asking this little goofball who started a training facility how his business is doing.
That's cool.
But they care because, we've worked with some of these families for, 10, 15 years. We've seen their kids through junior high and high school and college sports, and now they're off and they're getting married and having kids. Yeah, it's been really fun. But like I was saying, I'm extremely blessed and grateful for some of the people that I've run into here.
That's really, really cool. So let's say somebody is in the Seattle area and they're looking to connect with you, looking to connect with one of the coaches that you have at your facility, looking to get into your facility and, start up on your programs. How can somebody learn more about what's going on at ATI? How can they connect with you and learn more about what's happening there?
They can go to our website, athletictraininginstitute.com. I know it's kind of a long one. Not to be confused with the other ATI. Which unfortunately is a huge, massive group of PT clinics. And we had the name first. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Athletic Training Institute. A lot of times we just refer to it as that to avoid confusion, because we've had a number of clients. All of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm at your place and you're not here. Like, no, you're probably at a PT clinic.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, go to our website, or you can just, if you're in Seattle and you want to come by, just drop in. We have an awesome front desk person. She's phenomenal. So, and very friendly and willing to give you tours and walk around. If you want to directly connect with me, you can contact me, KirkB at athletictraininginstitute.com. Yeah, or you just give me a call. Our phone number is on our website as well, so you can give us a ring and we'll get you in and show you the place and give you a tour.
I can say, and I know Julie's been there as well, that you have an amazing facility. And from what I hear, I need to commend you, because it seems like every single class I teach, there's one of your people is in there. Whether it's somebody that's on there full time, whether it's somebody that's there as an intern, but there's always somebody from Athletic Training Institute in there, and it's awesome because I get to hear about all the updates that are going on. And so they're telling me like, we've expanded, we've added the Adapt Center and all this other stuff. So we definitely need to swing by, because it's been since October of 2014 that we've been there. So I'm sure a ton has changed.
That's our audition. We expanded. We're over 10,000 square feet now.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's great when we actually have money coming in.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, Kirk, the question that we like wrapping up with for all of our guests is, what is your definition of health?
It goes back to what I've been talking about, just restoring normal function to the body. I think there's so much mysticism and so much mismarketing and junk out there that people are consuming massive amounts of supplements and pills and drugs, thinking that they're going to shortcut the system. You don't need to. I mean, the human body's ridiculously amazing if you just get it to function like it's supposed to, and then you have somebody who has a brain in their head, can teach you how to do some actual appropriate resistance training. You'll be shocked how different you'll feel. Yeah. And again, not to tout MAT too much, but I don't know where I'd be without it, honestly. And for me personally, I played football for 13 years and beat the crap out of my body. And I trained every day with my athletes. I used to train 6 hours a day with my athletes when I first started this place, pre-MAT. So until my wife threatened me, she's like, you can't do that anymore. You're getting out of bed like an old man. So I was just beat up. So personally, I've I've gotten so much from being treated, just feeling like I can actually train again and do things I want to do and go ski and water sports and golf and play with my friends and not be a train wreck. Because I see some of my friends who, we live across the country now, and they're a mess.
Sure.
So they're overweight. They're on all kinds of pills, and I can't talk to them because I went to college with them. They saw what I did in college, so they don't want to listen to me. But
hopefully, there's someone else out there.
Yeah.
I guess the synopsis of my definition of health would just be restoring function to the body.
Yeah.
To do what it's designed to do, right? And then, put some stress on your body. Go out and exercise and do the things that you want to do, but be smart about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would have to say that totally is in line with how we view things. Is if you can just get your body to do what it's supposed to do, it can take care of so much of what you are relying on external things for. Just get your body working the way it's supposed to work, doing what it's supposed to do.
I mean, think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Like, have we ever lived in an easier time as human beings? No, this is the easiest time for humans on Earth. Well, then why are we so sick?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our disease rates are going through the roof. I mean, if you look at the epidemiological curves of cancer, of brain disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, of diabetes. I mean, it's adult onset diabetes. It's through the roof right now. Even autism is going bananas. I mean,
sure.
When I was a kid, it was unheard of. Now it's like 1 in 100. It's crazy rates of autism and kids on the spectrum. So, I mean, it's clearly environmental. It can't be anything else.
Sure.
I mean, I ate like garbage when I was a teenager. We had like the Schwan man come by our house and crushed corn dogs and cream, and I was pretty fit. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have cell phones and laptop computers, and we didn't have LED TVs, and we didn't have the lighting we have now. Everything was just different.
Right.
I mean, I sound like I'm 100 years old, but it's even 20 years ago, things were so different. But I mean, you look at the curves of what's happening right now with disease, that completely follows what we've done with technology.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Well, Kirk, thank you so much, man, for sharing your time, for sharing your expertise, for sharing your stories with us. We really appreciate it.
I'm just so happy to be talking with somebody.
Right? Exactly. that human connection's a big thing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys take care of yourselves.
Likewise. Absolutely, my friend. Stay safe. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, all right? So how cool is that? Hearing about Kirk's take on human body performance and this idea of callusing the body for the stresses of life, to be able to tolerate all the stresses of life, not just physical stresses, but all the environmental stresses that we occur on a daily, monthly, weekly, and like hourly, every second basis. I mean, this stuff is huge. And so if you can kind of decrease your stresses in that manner, your body functions so much better, your body feels so much better. You can keep doing all the things in life that bring you joy for as long as you want to do them. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that feels like their body is just breaking down over time? Share this episode with them so they can learn about the awesome work Kirk and his staff of coaches are doing in Seattle at ATI. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this podcast who are searching for information on exercise and who are searching for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.